It started on a hot, sticky Saturday morning in Austin, the kind of heat that makes the pavement shimmer and turns your shirt into a damp rag the second you step outside. I had this half-baked plan to fix up the warped fence boards in the backyard, the ones I'd been putting off for weeks. Emily left early for a yoga class and dropped a quick note on the counter, all casual like always, keys are in the bowl. Have fun being Mr. Fix-It. Heart, that little heart at the end, she always did that. I didn't think much of it. Her car was the better option anyway, since mine was in the shop waiting on a new alternator. I grabbed her keys, chugged half a bottle of lukewarm coffee, and headed out the door with a list of lumber sizes in my back pocket and a podcast queued up on my phone. Everything felt normal. Comfortable even. Like a routine we'd lived in 1,000 times. Her car smelled like it always did, lavender with a hint of citrus from those little diffusers she liked to clip to the vent. The seats were spotless, dashboard wiped down, console clear. No clutter, no mess. She kept it like her closet, neatly curated, minimal, intentional. I tossed my bottle onto the passenger seat without looking, slid behind the wheel, and backed out of the driveway. That's when I saw it. Just as I was pulling up to the stop sign at the end of the block, I reached over for my water and paused. Sitting on the passenger seat, half covered by the bottle, was a single, beat-up leather work glove. Brown, cracked at the seams, the kind of glove that's been worn down by years of hard use. Not a gardening glove. Not one of those cutesy pairs with floral trim. This was heavy-duty. The fingertips were stained dark, possibly from oil or grease, and the leather was softened in that way only old gear gets, molded by someone else's hands. It stopped me cold. I picked it up. It had weight to it. Dust, dirt, maybe even something gritty under the surface, like sand or old concrete. I turned it over in my hands, noticing a frayed cuff and a small tear near the thumb. This wasn't something Emily would ever use. I'd never seen her wear anything like it. Hell, I wasn't even sure she knew we owned something like this. I sat there in the middle of the street longer than I should have, cars swerving around me, horns honking in the background while I stared at this damn glove like it was a piece of evidence in a mystery I didn't know I was part of. And then something clicked. Just 2 days ago, Emily told me she was driving alone to an antique market out near Dripping Springs. Said she needed a break, wanted to hunt for some inspiration pieces for the living room redesign she kept hinting at. I didn't think twice. I trusted her. I always did. She even showed me the route on Google Maps when she came back, laughing about how she'd gotten turned around near a gas station with no signage and had to use the GPS to find her way back to the main road. Her voice was casual. Breezy. Believable. So why was there a worn glove in her car? It didn't match the story. Not at all. And it definitely didn't belong to her. My first assumption, maybe it was hers after all, maybe she grabbed something from the garage. I wanted that to be true. But then I remembered something that froze me deeper than the AAC ever could. Emily's dad used to wear gloves like this. Almost identical, actually. He was the kind of man who'd fix his own gutters in a lightning storm, tinker with the engine of a car just to keep it humming, and split wood even though we lived in a city where you didn't need a fireplace unless it was for aesthetic. He passed away 2 years ago this spring after a long, brutal battle with pancreatic cancer. We cleaned out the garage not long after. Everything of his that she wanted to keep, old tools, some records, a few of his shirts, was boxed up and either stored or donated. I helped her go through it. She cried over a single rusty screwdriver because she remembered him fixing her first bike with it. That's how detailed the process was. Nothing got overlooked. There was no mystery box she could have just found. And certainly not one that would have led to a lone glove ending up on the passenger seat. When I got back from the hardware store that afternoon, I asked her about it, keeping my tone light. Hey, I said, holding up the glove. This yours? She glanced at it, barely breaking stride as she grabbed a drink from the fridge. Oh, that? Probably my dad's. I found one of his old boxes in the garage and tossed some stuff in the car to donate. The words came out too fast. Too practiced. My stomach sank. I said nothing then. Just nodded, tossed the glove onto the kitchen table, and went back outside like it was nothing. But inside, something shifted. It was subtle, like the first hairline crack in a windshield, barely visible, but you know it's there. And you know it's going to spread. Because here's the truth, I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her face didn't sit right. She didn't blink when she lied. Not once. No hesitation, no backtrack. Just a clean explanation wrapped in convenience. And if I'm being honest with myself, this wasn't the first moment something had felt off. It was just the first time I couldn't ignore it. The rest of the day passed like I was watching it from outside my own body. I sanded down the old fence boards, drove in new screws, stained the wood. Kept my hands busy because I couldn't get my mind to stop spinning. That glove sat in the kitchen for hours. She never mentioned it again. And that's when I knew this wasn't over. This was just the start. After the glove, nothing looked the same. It's strange how one object, just a crumpled, old piece of leather, can change the entire way you see the world around you. It wasn't just a glove anymore. It was a trigger. A crack in the facade that, once exposed, let everything else start pouring through. And man, there was a lot. At first, I told myself to let it go. Everyone keeps odd junk in their car. Maybe it really did come from the garage, maybe I forgot, maybe I was overreacting. But even as I tried to reason with myself, that quiet part of me, the one that watches, that notices, that remembers details I don't even realize I care about, was already spinning the wheel. I started paying attention. And once I did, I couldn't stop seeing it. It was in the way Emily asked me for space a few weeks back. It wasn't framed like a red flag at the time. She said she was feeling overwhelmed, needed a mental reset. Said she might crash at her friend Tara's for a night or two here and there, just to clear her head. I didn't question it. I'm not the clingy type. We've always given each other room. But now, looking back, it wasn't space she was asking for, it was permission. She'd been out overnight 3 times in the last month. Always with a different excuse. Girls' wine night, helping Tara with her breakup, too tired to drive home. Each story came with enough surface-level details to feel believable, but none of them ever invited follow-up. She never offered photos or texts to prove where she'd been. And I never asked. I trusted her. Blindly. God, I hate how blind I was. Then there were the little things. Insignificant on their own, but together they formed a pattern I'd been too comfortable to see. One afternoon, I found a bottle of men's body wash in our shower, some brand I didn't recognize. When I asked, she laughed and said it came free with a Target box or some promo thing. She tossed it in with the rest of our toiletries without thinking. Another time, I found an unfamiliar baseball cap in the laundry room. Not mine. Not anything I'd worn or bought. It was simple, gray with a frayed brim, but I knew what I owned, and that wasn't it. I brought it up and she gave me this tired smile and said, "Oh, probably left behind by my cousin when he visited last month." The cousin lives in Oregon. He hadn't been in Texas in over a year. And then there was the laptop. Emily had always been open about her tech. She wasn't secretive, not overtly. But lately, whenever I entered a room, she'd slam it shut like I'd just caught her looking at something illegal. She'd say it froze. Or it crashed. Or that she was just reading an article and the tab accidentally closed. It kept happening. Not once. Not twice. Almost every night. She'd be curled up on the couch, typing furiously with that furrowed brow she gets when she's focused, and the moment she heard my footsteps, her whole posture would shift, stiff, alert, like she'd been caught doing something wrong. And the laptop would disappear. Once I walked in unexpectedly after coming home early from work. She didn't hear me at first, I guess my footsteps were quieter than usual. She was sitting on the floor, legs crossed, laptop open on the coffee table. I saw her click through something fast, and then, without looking, she shoved the whole thing under the couch cushion like it was a bomb about to go off. I stood there, speechless, and she jumped like I'd slapped her. "Jesus, Mark," she gasped. "You scared the hell out of me. What were you doing?" "Just reading. You know blogs." "Blogs?" She smiled, nervous. "Design stuff. Interior inspo. You know me." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and went to the kitchen to grab a drink, but the air between us had shifted. She knew I'd seen something. I knew she was hiding something. But neither of us said it out loud. That was the new rhythm we'd fallen into, pretending not to notice the foundation cracking underneath us. But once I started noticing, the cracks weren't so easy to ignore. She started checking in with me about my schedule way more than usual. It wasn't the sweet, considerate kind of checking in, like, "Hey, when are you free for lunch this week?" It was detailed. Repetitive. Too precise. "What time are you heading to the office tomorrow?" she'd ask in the morning. Then again, hours later, "You said you're working late Thursday, right?" And again at dinner, "Just want to make sure I shouldn't expect you before 8 on Thursday, right?" At first, I figured she was trying to plan something. Maybe a surprise. Maybe a getaway. That's what I wanted to believe. But deep down, it felt off. Like she wasn't trying to spend time with me, she was trying to work around me. I began to wonder what she was really doing while I was at work. Who she was with. Where she actually went on those nights away. But I still didn't have proof, just this mounting anxiety that made it hard to sleep, hard to focus, hard to breathe. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I was projecting. That maybe I was just tired and looking for problems that weren't there. But then I found something I couldn't explain away. It was a Tuesday night. I got home a bit early, some server crashed at work, and the whole team was sent home while IT cleaned it up. I didn't text Emily that I was on my way. Just wanted to surprise her, maybe order takeout and try to reset whatever strange tension had started eating away at us. When I walked through the front door, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I rounded the corner into the living room, expecting her to be watching TV or scrolling her phone. Instead, I saw her kneeling by the coffee table, frantically pulling a flash drive from her laptop and jamming it into her purse. She looked up startled. Her cheeks flushed. "Mark, I thought you were working late." I didn't answer right away. My eyes went to the screen, which was dark. Closed out. Clean. Too clean. "What are you doing?" She blinked fast. "Nothing. Just moving some files. Work stuff." "On your personal laptop?" She hesitated. "Yeah, it's easier this way. My work laptop's been acting up." I didn't argue. Didn't press. I just nodded, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and went upstairs. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the look on her face when I walked in. The panic. The guilt. The way she clutched that flash drive like it was a grenade. The next morning, she kissed me on the cheek and told me to have a good day. Same tone, same smile. But I could feel the distance growing between us, measured not in miles, but in lies. I didn't say anything. Not yet. But I was done brushing things off. Done pretending everything was okay. I wasn't sure what I was looking for exactly. But I knew without a doubt I was going to find it. I didn't expect the truth to show up like that, so suddenly, so stupidly simple. In the end, it wasn't some dramatic discovery. No hidden folder. No planted clue. It was just timing. It happened on a Thursday. The sky had cracked open that morning with a surprise storm, and we lost power for a couple hours. Nothing major, just enough to reset every smart device in the house. Clocks blinking, router needing a restart, all that mundane chaos. When the internet came back, I went around reconnecting everything. Our smart speakers, the fridge screen, the thermostat. And then I got to the tablet. The old one we barely used anymore, buried in the drawer of our TV console. It had once been our shared device, used for browsing recipes and streaming Netflix on the porch. Lately, it had collected dust, forgotten. I pressed the power button and watched it flicker to life, the screen sluggish. It took a while to boot, but eventually it chimed back into consciousness. A small pop-up appeared in the corner. Cloud sync complete. One new photo uploaded. Nothing big, just a background notification. Could have easily been ignored. But I tapped it. And there she was. Emily. In our kitchen. Hair messy, no makeup, barefoot in her favorite plaid pajama pants. Her back was resting against the counter, her head tucked under someone's chin. A man. They were wrapped around each other, close. Familiar. His hand on her lower back, hers clutching the front of his shirt. You could almost miss it, but if you looked closely at the glass door behind them, his reflection was right there. Face half turned, the corner of a beard visible. Tall. Broad. And in their hands? Our mugs. The matching ceramic ones I had custom-made for our anniversary last year. Hers said, "Still yours, mine, always yours." She was holding mine. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, my fingers frozen above the glass. I tried to tell myself it could have been old. From before us, maybe. But the timestamp said otherwise. It was dated just a few weeks ago on a night she told me she was sleeping at her sister's. The ache in my chest was different this time. Not sharp. Not dramatic. Just heavy. Like someone had dropped a cement block onto my ribs. I swiped. There were more photos. One of them in our bedroom, our sheets unmistakable. The warm mustard yellow ones Emily insisted we buy after binge-watching some Scandinavian home tour. She was grinning into the camera. A soft, giddy smile, while the man lay half asleep beside her, shirtless, face obscured by shadow and her messy hair. Another photo showed her legs tangled with his, barely visible under the covers. One had the edge of her hand pressed to his cheek, her engagement ring turned inward like she was hiding it. Each image came with a clean timestamp, each one aligned with nights she'd needed space, or said she was out helping friends. The syncing hadn't been intentional. She probably forgot this device was even logged into the cloud. And somehow that made it worse. Because this wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't a drunken slip or a regrettable night. It was a pattern. She had brought him into our home, into our kitchen, into our bed. And she had documented it. Selfies. Snaps *TS. Memories. Like they were proud of it. The thing that kept circling in my head wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how natural she looked in those photos. comfortable, relaxed, like she wasn't sneaking around, like she wasn't risking a damn thing. It was domestic, casual, routine. And I realized something that made my stomach turn. This man, whoever he was, had been here more than once. He knew his way around. He'd sipped coffee from my mug. He'd stood barefoot on the hardwood floors I spent 2 weekends sanding and sealing by hand, and I hadn't noticed a thing. I stood there, holding the tablet like it might combust, trying to process how blind I'd been. All those late-night projects she said she was working on. All the times she said she needed time to think. Every lie, every dodge, every half-truth suddenly rearranged into perfect clarity. There was no ambiguity anymore. Emily was cheating, not just physically, but emotionally, repeatedly, and shamelessly. I sat down on the couch, tablet still in my hand, my heart pounding like I'd just run 10 blocks. I kept going back to that first photo, the one in the kitchen. I zoomed in, looking for anything at all, that might explain it, that might soften it, that might give me an out so I didn't have to believe what I already knew. But all it did was confirm it. Her posture, his arms, the way they fit, the easy int asterisk Macy in how they touched. She wasn't cheating on me. She had replaced me, and I had no idea who he was. I went through every photo again, checked every date, every room, tracked each one against the calendar in my head. She'd been so good at hiding it, so precise. I thought I was paying attention, but I was asleep at the wheel. She'd mapped it out perfectly, planned around my schedule like it was a logistics problem. And the most damning thing? She looked happy, really happy. That's what gutted me. When was the last time she smiled at me like that? When was the last time she leaned into me like I was her home, not just her husband? Couldn't remember. And maybe that was the worst part, how easy it was for her to drift, to swap out one life for another. I sat there for a long time, the screen glowing softly in the dark room, my legs numb from staying still. Outside, the rain had started again. Light this time, like a whisper against the windows. The whole world was quiet, and all I could hear was my own breathing, shaky and uneven. Eventually, I powered down the tablet and placed it on the coffee table. Then I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a drink. Whiskey. Neat. I didn't even like whiskey, but it felt like something I was supposed to do. Like I needed to mark the moment with something sharp and bitter. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, sipping slowly, while everything I thought I knew about my marriage unraveled inside my chest. And deep down, I knew. I'd never look at her the same way again. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything or storm into our bedroom demanding answers. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't accuse. I didn't cry. Instead, I sat. Just sat. For hours. I watched the light change in the house, from the flat blue glow of the TV screen to the golden stretch of late afternoon, then the slow fade to twilight. At some point, I realized I hadn't eaten all day. My body didn't seem to care. I was running on something else now. Adrenaline, heartbreak, the kind of silent panic that hums just beneath your skin like static. When Emily got home that night, I didn't say a word. She came through the door humming to herself, keys jangling as she tossed them in the ceramic bowl by the fridge. She was wearing jeans and a loose sweater, her hair pulled up in that messy but cute way she did when she wanted to look effortless. "Hey babe," she called casually. "Sorry I didn't text. Tara and I grabbed dinner. That Thai place near 6th Street? Still amazing, by the way." I just nodded, eyes on my phone. She didn't seem to notice my silence, or if she did, she chalked it up to me being tired. She kissed me on the cheek like nothing had changed, like she hadn't been in our kitchen with another man wrapped around her less than a month ago. And I let her, because I wasn't ready to show my hand. Not yet. That night, after she went to bed, I opened my laptop and started collecting. I transferred every photo from the tablet to an encrypted folder, saved the timestamps, took *TS. I synced the data to a thumb drive and tucked it inside the box where we kept our passports. I wasn't planning anything impulsive. I wasn't even sure what I'd do with it yet. But I knew I needed it. Not for revenge. For clarity. For truth. The next few days felt surreal. I went through the motions like nothing had happened. Ate breakfast with her. Made coffee. talked about traffic and weekend errands, all while the images from the cloud replayed in the back of my mind like some twisted slideshow. She kept lying. Smooth, practiced lies. She said she was going to see Tara again on Thursday. A girls' movie night. I smiled and nodded. Tara had moved to Denver last year. I didn't even flinch when she said it, because by then I wasn't surprised. I was done being surprised. That Thursday, after she left, I packed her a bag. Not everything, just enough to make a statement. A few of her favorite sweaters. Her makeup bag. 2 pairs of shoes. I folded everything neatly, methodically, the way she liked it. It felt weirdly an asterisk mate. Like I was helping her get ready for a trip. But this time, the destination wasn't a hotel or someone else's bed. It was the exit. I set the bag near the front door and placed a sealed envelope on top. Inside were the photos. Printed. Dated. No commentary. No accusations. Just the facts. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to hear excuses. I didn't need her version of the story. I already knew the story. That night, I changed the smart lock settings. Disabled her access. Removed her fingerprint ID. She wouldn't be locked out permanently. I wasn't that cruel, but I wanted her to pause. I wanted her to feel it. The shift. The border between before and after. I went to bed early. Didn't even wait up. The next morning, just after 9 a.m., I heard the soft clatter of keys at the door. Then the hesitation. The subtle jostle of a lock that didn't respond. A pause. A knock. I didn't answer. Instead, I waited. She knocked again, louder this time. Mark, she called through the door. The lock's not working. Can you open up? I stood behind the curtain, watching through the side window as her face shifted from confusion to unease. Then her eyes landed on the bag. She saw the envelope. Her hand hovered over it, unsure. She looked around like someone might be watching, like the sidewalk itself could read her guilt. Finally, she picked it up. I couldn't hear her voice, but I saw her lips move, murmuring something to herself as she flipped through the photos. Her shoulders slumped. Her mouth opened. And then, nothing. No tears. No denial. Just stillness. She didn't knock again. She didn't scream or text or call. She simply sat on the front step with the bag at her feet and the envelope in her lap, staring out at the street like it could offer her some kind of answer. And I stayed inside. I didn't unlock the door. I didn't say a word. Eventually, she stood, slid the photos back into the envelope, and picked up the bag. She looked up at the window. I stepped back out of sight. A few seconds later, I heard her car door shut, the engine start, and then she was gone. I waited another hour before stepping outside. The street was quiet. The porch still held the ghost of her presence, like the smell of someone's perfume after they've left a room. But she was gone. And the silence that followed? It didn't feel empty. It felt honest. For the first time in weeks, there were no lies hanging in the air. No explanations I had to pretend to believe. Just me. And the truth. I didn't know what would come next. Not exactly. But I knew it wouldn't include more pretending. I wouldn't chase her down for closure. Wouldn't hold onto the fragments of a version of her that only ever existed in my head. She made her choice. And now I was making mine. It took 2 days for her to reappear, not in person, but online. I hadn't heard a word from her since the morning she stood on our porch with the envelope in her hands. No calls, no texts. Her name didn't pop up in my inbox or on my lock screen. And part of me was grateful. The quiet gave me space to think. But then I opened Instagram. It was a stupid habit, muscle memory more than anything. I wasn't even thinking about her. Just scrolling through, trying to distract myself from the echoing stillness of the house. And there she was. Emily. A new post. It was a photo of her in the passenger seat of a car, framed perfectly, filtered to death. Rain streaked the window beside her. Soft blur in the background. Her face turned halfway toward the glass. Hair down. No makeup. Eyes red-rimmed but photogenic in that curated sadness kind of way. She looked like the main character in some indie film about heartbreak and healing. The caption? Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find your voice again. Here's to starting over, even when it hurts. Hashtag self-love, hashtag growth, hashtag new beginnings, hashtag strong women rise. My stomach twisted. The comments poured in like warm syrup. You're so brave. Proud of you, girl. Whatever happened, it's his loss. You deserve better. I just stared at it, blinking. It wasn't the photo that got me. It was the ease with which she rewrote the entire story. Like we'd ended things because she needed to find herself. Like I'd held her back. Like she was some phoenix rising from the ashes of an emotionally distant marriage. not the architect of its destruction. There was no mention of the man in our kitchen. No clue that she'd lied her way through the last several months of our life. Just a soft, sympathetic narrative crafted for social media, engineered to make her look like the wounded party. And people bought it. Even people who knew us. People who had stood in our living room during game nights and double dates. Friends who'd complimented our perfect dynamic and told us we were goals. I scrolled through the comments, feeling like I was watching someone hijack my life in real time. She wasn't just moving on. She was branding it. I didn't comment, didn't DM her, but I took a *T and sat with it for a while, just staring at her face on the screen. Not the face I'd known, the one I kissed goodnight every evening, but the version she was now performing for a curated audience. The actress in her own redemption arc. And then, something strange happened. Buried in the sea of hearts and supportive hashtags, there was one comment that stood out. A single sentence. "Wasn't that the same night you were with someone else in the house?" No emoji. No hashtags. Just that. Plain. Sharp. Surgical. I clicked the profile. It was private. Username didn't ring a bell. Could have been a burner. Could have been someone who knew. Maybe one of her friends. Maybe someone who recognized the kitchen from that photo I found. Maybe him? I'll never know. But it didn't matter, because the damage was already done. An hour later, the post was gone. No explanation. No follow-up. Vanished. Like it had never existed. That's when it hit me. She didn't post that for healing. She posted it to get ahead of the story. To control the narrative. To gather sympathy before the truth could catch up to her. She wanted the world to see her as brave, not as guilty. As empowered, not exposed. It was the social media equivalent of staging a crime scene. She was rewriting history in real time with good lighting and a strategic caption. And I realized something then. Something I hadn't fully understood until that moment. She was going to be fine. Not emotionally, maybe, but publicly. She'd land on her feet. There would always be a crowd ready to console a crying woman in a well-lit photo. Always someone ready to believe the curated version. Me? I didn't even exist in that story. I was just the shadow she stepped out of. The man-shaped obstacle she overcame to find herself. But what she didn't realize, what that photo didn't show, was that while she was busy crafting her comeback, I was finding something too. Clarity. Peace. A strange kind of power. I didn't need to post. I didn't need to defend myself in comments or share my side with strangers. Because the truth didn't need filters. It didn't need hashtags. It just needed time. That weekend, I started unfollowing her family. Quietly. No drama. No announcements. I removed her friends from my feed one by one until my digital life felt like mine again. I deleted the photos. Archived the memories. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. I didn't want daily reminders of a life that no longer existed. I didn't want to keep seeing her face pretending to be someone new. I started going for morning runs again. Slow at first. Ankles stiff, lungs rusty, but it felt good. Real. I slept with the windows open, letting the breeze push through the bedroom. I reorganized the closet. Took down the vision board she made last year, full of European cottages and minimalist kitchens. Replaced it with nothing. Just bare wall. For now. I called my brother, who I hadn't talked to in months. We caught up over beers. And when he asked how I was doing, I told him the truth. Getting there. It was the first honest answer I'd said out loud in a long time. And that night, as I lay in bed alone, no one beside me, no pretense, no false comfort, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't lonely. I was free. We met one last time. Neutral ground. A small coffee shop with cold brew on tap and a too loud indie playlist. She looked tired. No makeup, no filters. Just Emily. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. I fell in love, she said, like it was a defense. I didn't plan it. I just felt alive again. I didn't respond. I slid a photo across the table, her, in our kitchen, in his arms. Her smile faded. Gone. No words followed. None were needed. She knew it was over. And when I stood to leave, she didn't stop me. Didn't follow. She just sat there, staring at a version of herself she couldn't explain anymore. Part 7. Stillness that finally felt honest. A month passed. I rearranged the house, cleared the digital clutter. The nights were quiet now, but not lonely. I ran. I cooked. I breathed. One afternoon I wandered into a riverside gallery. A woman stood beside me, silent, observing a painting neither of us understood. We didn't speak. And in that silence I didn't feel broken.